The last challenge I want to talk about, which is a very, very important challenge, and we will face much more of that in the coming years, is the legal challenge. Israel knows, I think it's increasingly admitting, that it has lost the battle for hearts and minds around the world, and increasingly in the US. Not yet in the US, but increasingly in the US. But they've really lost it. I mean, they're not convincing anyone with their sending their symphonies to play Beethoven and their dancer. I mean, it's not working, really. It's not working. So they're shifting to plan B, which is legally suppress the BDS movement, legally make it, criminalize it. They are doing that very actively in Canada, which is, as far as Palestinian human rights are concerned, is so 2 centuries old in their politics, and their respect for international law is really a very neoconservative government. So in Canada, they're trying to do legally challenge BDS. In France, they're trying. In Britain, they tried and failed miserably. The court threw out a case against a union in very strong terms. And increasingly, they're trying in the United States to challenge BDS legally. If you've noticed in the backlash against the American Studies Association, the former Israeli ambassador in Washington, Michael Oren, wrote something extremely dangerous. He said Congress should step up and pass a law making it illegal to boycott Israel and to penalize any American association that dares to support the boycott of Israel. What Michael Oren is basically telling the United States Congress is scrap the First Amendment when it comes to Israel. Imagine the arrogance. Imagine, I mean, they want the United States to scrap the First Amendment of the Constitution to save Israel from the growing boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. But that's a real danger. It sounds ludicrous now, but as Thomas Friedman said, again, Congress is bought and paid for by the Israel lobby. You never know. I don't trust your Congress. I mean, you have no control, obviously, over your Congress. It's somebody else's Congress, not yours. Corporate Congress is not accountable to the people of this country, so I don't trust them. But still, I think the First Amendment is not something easy to scrap. I think that this will attract the wrath of the New York Times, will be against them, as happened in Brooklyn College last year. When Brooklyn College organized a BDS event where Judith Butler and I spoke, the assemblymen, the politicians of New York were up in arms and called on the city of New York to defund Brooklyn College, to stop funding Brooklyn College, because it's allowing its political science department to co-sponsor a BDS event. The editorial board of the New York Times defended us. Mayor Giuliani, you know him, I don't need to explain, defended our right to speak. ACLU did, National Committee Against Censorship did. All the liberal bastions in this country came out and defended our right to speak, our right to advocate BDS under First Amendment. So it won't be an easy battle, but that's a battle to watch. The legal battle. Israel is really investing a lot of energy into legally suppressing BDS because to them, they're desperate. There's no other way to stop this non-violent human rights movement based on equal rights for all human beings. How can you combat it? Israel is not designed to face such potent non-violent challenges. As one Israeli general said in the context of fighting the demonstrations against the wall in Bilain, a village in the West Bank, he said, we don't do Gandhi very well. Indeed, we know they don't do Gandhi very well. They don't know how to deal with non-violent movements. They can crush any army in the region easily. They have the weapons. But what do if the Presbyterian Church in June passes a divestment resolution? Bomb the Presbyterian Church? So, I mean, their weaponry is limited. They will call the Presbyterian Church anti-Semitic. Yes. It will be on the front page of the New York Times, on CNN, on Fox, all radio stations, and so on. True. But again, it has lost its sharp impact, this accusation, because it's way overused completely in the wrong place. The last point, which I want to end with before opening the discussion, is what can be done. It's very important for each person to see that this is a citizens' movement. This is not an NGO. This is not a political movement in the traditional sense. This is a human rights movement, as the South African anti-apartheid movement was, that's based on initiatives, on creativity of individuals like yourselves. There are no marching orders coming from above to anyone. There's no hierarchical structure in this movement. It's a citizens' movement, especially free citizens' movement, or relatively free. We can consider you relatively free. So you have the privileges. And more than the privilege, you have the moral obligation, because your tax money is why Israel can maintain its regime of oppression against us. So our oppression has made in the USA written all over it. This engenders moral responsibility. To do something, to stop the abuse of your tax money in oppressing us, in uprooting our trees and killing our children, and ethnically cleansing us every single day, gradually ethnically cleansing us. There's a moral obligation there. And I think even if somebody can say, well, I pay my taxes to government, and as you yourself admitted, I have no control over this plutocracy, so-called Congress. So what do I do? If I have no control how my tax money is being used to oppress other people, to commit injustices, at least I can offset that complicity by doing something positive, by pressuring to change the reality on the ground. If I'm part of an institution, I can push for a BDS resolution in that institution. In a union, in a church, in any group you can think of, start locally and connect the dots. 2 years ago, BDS activists in the US felt very lonely. There were so few, and they did not see the rest, what's happening in the rest of the world. By now, I can say that American activists are very well connected with international activists. They know what's happening in Brazil and India and London and Johannesburg and Sweden, and immediately we're sharing knowledge. And what's beautiful about this movement, I've been in so many meetings, it is really non-racial. It's really non-discriminatory. So around the same table, you'll find an African American, a Latino, a Jewish person, a gay person. I mean, a huge mix, all fighting for this struggle together. They see that this is a core human value, a core fight against injustice everywhere. And that is the compelling rationale of BDS. So I'll stop here.